Good evening and welcome to Borough Hall. I think we should close that. I think so. There are two items on the agenda this evening. Please note that this hearing is being recorded to comply with the public law for transparency. It will be available for viewing on Borough President Adams' website, brooklyn-usa.org, or on the One Brooklyn channel on YouTube. Web viewers may submit timely comments to Ask Eric at brooklynbp.nyc.gov for Borough President Adams' consideration. Please call the first item and let us begin.
Calendar item number 170086 ZSK.
This application is submitted by 120 Kingston LLC, seeking the grant of a special permit to modify use and signage regulations for an existing three-story building located on 120 Kingston Avenue in the Crown Heights North Historic District of Community District 8. Such action would allow a commercial use on portions of the cellar and ground floor and accessory commercial signs for the existing building. Community Board 8 approved this application on May 11, 2017, with the representative for this application, Jordan Jordan Most, please state your name for the record and present the application.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Jordan Most from the Office of Brian Cave. I'm the Land Use Counsel on behalf of the ownership. Also here is David Smeltzer from the ownership and Sonia Conti from the architect's office, Charles Deal Architects. So this is an application pursuant to 74-711 to modify the use regulations of section 2210 of the zoning resolution to reestablish the Kingston Lounge located at 120 Kingston Avenue. So I've got there's some big plans up here. You've also got a set which is the same as the set that's up here, and there's also a land use map just to give you some context as to what we're talking about, and it sort of helps, I think, with the explanation as well. So it's at the corner. This property is at the corner of Kingston Avenue and Bergen Street, and it is to restore the Kingston Lounge and the accessory commercial signage. The Kingston Lounge, a use group 6 commercial use, would occupy the first floor and the cellar space in what is a 3-story building that is vacant right now. The property is located in the Crown Heights North Historic District, which was created back in 2007, and being in the Historic District is what enables this property to seek the change of use under 74-711. So this building dates back all the way to about 1902, but the real focus of this application is, at least in the context of ULURP, is the Kingston Lounge. That was a small jazz club that opened in 1944 and had a long run sort of as a renowned music establishment in this area, and much broader also. And it fell over time. The building, and particularly the Kingston Lounge, fell into disrepair, and in the 1980s and closed, and thereafter the entire building became vacant by about 2001, and has remained such since then. The property is located in an R6 zoning district, so you can see that on this on the land use map that I've handed out. Also has the zoning overlaid as well, and you can identify the property there with that red box around it. The present owner acquired the building in 2013, and like I said, the property is located in an R6 zoning district, but the 3 corners, curiously, are all in commercial overlay districts, C13, and it's probably, I'm sure there's an explanation for it. I wasn't there in 1961 when it was mapped, but what happened in all likelihood is the city generally maps commercial overlays on when they came to look at this intersection. The only commercial use at at the Bergen, at the southwest corner of Bergen and Kingston, was the Kingston Lounge. And since it was that only a single use, I think the decision was in all likelihood made to let it be a legal non-conforming use. It can continue, but we're not going to place a commercial overlay here because it's too small a site. Whereas the other blocks had considerable commercial use, and commercial overlays were mapped basically for the entire block fronts, which is generally how city planning prefers to map commercial overlays. So that meant that the Kingston Lounge could remain as long as it continued to be there. But when the Kingston Lounge fell into disrepair and closed and the building became vacant, although there are some other subtle distinctions with regard to the restarting of a use, in general, when you have a non-conforming use that gets discontinued after 2 years, you lose the right to that use. So the applicant is now using 74-711 to sort of resurrect this commercial use at the site. With regard to the 74-711 process, there's obviously an important landmark component. This has already been through landmarks. Landmarks has signed off on the restoration of the building facade, the commercial signage, and particularly the signage that was created back in the 40s when the Kingston Lounge was created. So this was a different building originally back in 1902. It didn't have, obviously, this sort of Art Deco lounge, but that's become an important component of obviously of the application, and was important for landmarks in terms of restoration. It was approved by landmarks. It was approved by the community board, the landmark piece of this application. Now we're in the ULURP or land use part of the application. We've already been to the community board, and the application was approved again overwhelmingly at the community board every time it was there. And that's really the 74-711 process. Then just briefly with regard to the findings for 74-711 that are applicable to this application is that the applicant has to establish a continuing maintenance program. This satisfies landmarks that the building will be restored as they've particularly described and required, and on a periodic basis the building will be revisited to make sure it's constantly maintained, basically on, I think, 5-year incremental periods, to make sure that the building is constantly being maintained in good condition. And then the other finding is that the change of use in 74-711 is a section that's used for a wide variety of bulk changes to buildings often. Not in this case. This case, the only thing that's being changed is the use. You can use it to change use and or bulk. There are no bulk changes, no yard waivers or height waivers or anything like that. The building, as has always been there, is going to continue to be there. It's reintroduction of the commercial use that the application is about, so that the other finding is that there are minimal adverse effects with the introduction of the use. And our argument or position has always been that, well, first of all, we're not introducing a new use. We're introducing a use that had been there for many, many years, I guess almost 50 years. And that there are commercial uses or commercial spaces on all 3 of the abutting corners at this intersection. And it will be a good addition to the character of the community, as well as restoration of this building, which means what is a vacant building will become an actively used and inhabited building. The upper floors are residential, and there will be 2 residential units on the 2 upper floors.
Thank you very much, Mr. Most. I am trying to get an understanding as far as the process was concerned. The community board had concerns making sure that they stressed the opportunity to have the historic character of the Kingston Lounge preserved. And so did this meet the community board's recommendations or concerns?
So at that community board, that was just a few weeks ago, at that community board meeting, there was discussion as to they wanted assurances, and we have no problem with that. It's always been the plan for this space that this be the restoration of the Kingston Lounge, and that there will be this will be a music venue. This will be a lounge which will have food and drink and music, just as it was back in the day.
Like
when it
walking
was
back
there.
in time.
Right.
And so,
So it's, I would just characterize it as a restoration of the physical building, like what you see here.
Right.
But also of, I think you said the word, character. It's a restoration of the character and the culture of the Kingston Lounge.
and as far as considerations towards a comprehensive operating plan, what are the hours of operation and security measures in relation to the use?
Okay. So I don't know that we've established specific hours of operation at this point. But what we do know is that as I was checking over the plans again, I saw that we do have, and talking to the client, there are specific measures to install security cameras that are located, and I think I wrote some notes here, that we've got security cameras, roughly 5 cameras, one in the rear of the building, one on Kingston, which is the short frontage, and 3 on Bergen. There are also small globe lights, and this is actually in the plans. I guess I should flip some of these sheets. It might even be right here, right? I don't know if it's in this set of plans. Probably not. That's a detail.
I think the second sheet will have elevations, but I'm not sure if the cameras will show.
Right.
Okay, now these are the historic photos. Oh, we do. We've got cameras
Okay.
here. There's also going to be recessed lighting. You can see here in the detail above the residential door and above the commercial door.
And the globe lighting as well,
Globe lights
right?
are actually on the back.
Okay, and one on Bergen, I think, at least that's how it shows on the plans, that there are 6, so there's 5 security cameras, and there are 6 sort of globe-like sconce fixtures, 4 in the rear, and I think 2 on the Bergen frontage over here. And the signage has sort of, I would characterize as mild lighting. It was an important part of the dialogue with city planning. Obviously, they're concerned about lighting being introduced. They don't want too much light, but light is important for security purposes too. So you've got to strike a balance between having enough light to be safe, but not too much light so as to be disturbing. And I think that's.
I appreciate the security camera, the lighting, and maintaining what would be the character of the landmarking. The opportunity to understand the hours of operation are very important. We don't want this revival to then become the concern for the community. And so I'm just trying to understand the precinct that this particular establishment is in.
I'm not sure.
I wanted them to answer that, but I appreciate the participation of the audience. So I have the police department CompStat report for the 7-7, and I just want to, make it known that as part of the record, the crime stats here are very low, and we want to keep them as such.
Right.
And it's important that there's an hours of operation that is conducive to a residential community, sensitive to those issues, and that the monitoring of what is a relationship between the precinct and the establishment, so that there's a quality of life maintained, the opportunity to see what is the hours of operation as filed with the State Liquor Authority. I don't know if there's an application already filed. Has a permit been issued? Okay, so this is the beginning stages
Right.
of what is.
As this process ends, a whole host of other processes will begin. Department of Buildings filings, the liquor license, and so forth. I think the applicant is already in this neighborhood, sort of in other capacities.
Would the applicant like to say
Sure.
a few words? You're welcome to come up. Just have a seat.
State your name for the record.
David Smeltzer.
And so I don't know if you would like to just express your expectations of your establishment, and just making sure that the relationship with the community, not just as a business owner, but you as a resident of the neighborhood.
Sure, it's certainly our intent to keep good standing with the neighbors and be consistent with the neighborhood. Hours of operation have not been established yet, but certainly when we go that route, we'll, not sure what the right process is, but
Be sensitive
and look into what would be the optimal hours.
And
Dialogue, there's parties right here from the community board. They're always available to have that kind
Absolutely.
of consultation.
Likewise.
And so that's an opportunity for us to make sure that there's a working relationship between the community board and yourself, so that the hours of operation are sensitive and conducive to the quality of life. And having the leadership of community board, 8, thank you very much, I was about to say 9, a community board 8, to be able to have a human being interact with them, who is accountable for the establishment. Thank you very much. Just to move on with some of the questions that we've developed as policy of Borough President Adams' platform, we are always encouraging what are maximizing good quality jobs. We want to understand what is the inclusion and participation of MWBE businesses and local businesses in the area for the process of the renovation.
Want to speak to that?
You're referring to
The renovation, so with regard, not the operation, I'm sure we'll get there in a minute, but with regard to how the building's going to be renovated, the general contractors or subs, and what your experience
Local
has been.
businesses, MWBEs, the restoration, minority women-owned
Yeah, sure.
business enterprise.
The construction plans have not been finalized yet, so we're not really holding it, at the stage where we're going to be bidding it out. But we have done similar projects in the area, and our quality of work, I would say, is high. And we do use overwhelmingly, I think, all local businesses, contractors, subcontractors, and such. And that would be the plan moving forward with this as well.
I appreciate that. And as far as your contracted work, how many have been MWBEs?
I'm not sure of that.
Do you track that?
I personally don't. No.
Would you be able to just assist in letting us know what
Trying to find that out.
MWBE?
I don't know that we've got, I don't know what kind of records we have on that, but I certainly don't. I can talk to them and see if we can try and determine.
Analyze, yeah.
What happens is, I think that typically they will hire a general contractor who then hires
Correct.
subcontractors from the area. So I don't know what kind of information I have on their.
Right. And that's why I'm asking purposely, because when you're not holding the general contractor accountable to those decisions, then they go ahead and hire what are a network of people that may not meet what would be the interests and policies of how you would be assisting the community as well as Brooklyn overall.
Sure.
And so I want to make sure that it's an effort on both our parts, us by asking and you by holding accountable.
And you could share with us, like from your recent projects, which firms you've used, and if they could share with you what subs they've used, help us get a sense of how you've done your quality work.
Absolutely.
We appreciate the partnership. And obviously, the efforts of hiring locally for the operations of the day-to-day is another element. As far as economic development is concerned, we cannot assume local hiring is taking place, and so we just want to make sure that you are able to work with the community board once again for job postings, so that the local hiring piece is met, where the establishment is favorable and conducive to what are benefits to the community. Obviously, when there's an effort to have the economic development of a community tied to its community, you have a greater success. So we look forward to a lot of the reporting of dialogue between the community board and the applicant moving forward.
Hey, David, you want to, if you could just speak just to us for a moment about the other establishments, and I mean, we didn't really.
Not at all. You could do so.
Fine, but in terms of that there are other businesses in the area are generally with a very high percentage of local hires. That's just generally, it's sensible and it makes sense from a good business perspective. It certainly makes sense for your people, the people who work in your business, to be as close by if that's possible. I think in all instances, they have a very high percentage of local hires from an operations perspective.
No, and we appreciate that. And obviously, the community board has what is a website that you can take advantage of to post what would be job postings of what would be those potential openings. But it's not something that I will assume. I want to make sure that there's a structure that's engineered so that there's an outcome that's tangible. We appreciate your efforts and commitment to doing so.
Absolutely.
And are there any other questions or comments on behalf of our staff? Okay. So there are no other registered speakers on this item. We will definitely review what would be any additional information that you may have to our office. And the Borough President will soon make his determination based upon all the information submitted.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Calendar item number 1 is closed. Calendar item number 2, 150382 PQK.
This application is submitted by the New York City Department for the Aging and the New York City Department of Citywide Administrative Services, seeking approval for the acquisition of property located at 196 Albany Avenue in the Crown Heights neighborhood of Community District 8. Such actions would facilitate the continued use of the property as a senior citizen center. Community Board 8 approved this application on June 8, 2017. Would the representatives for this application, Lee Boyce, yes, please state your names for the record and present the application.
Okay, I'm Lee Boyes. I'm the Director of Facilities for the New York City Department for the Aging. The Albany Senior Center has had its home at 196 Albany since the early 70s, in a building that was built as a senior center and a daycare center. The daycare center moved out a couple of years ago, but the senior center is still going, and we'd like for it to continue. DCAS is negotiating a 20-year lease for us. And there's a representative from DCAS here that could speak to the lease.
Could the representative of DCAS just have a seat? Thank you.
And then we have Claudette Macy here, who's the Executive Director of the Fort Greene Senior Citizens Council.
How are you, Claudette?
Great, thank you.
Excellent. I just wanted to ask a few questions. In the interest of the community, as far as the seniors' facilities to service what would be the neighborhood residents, what outreach is performed to ensure that seniors are aware of the benefits of this senior center, especially because of the population across Albany houses? If you can speak to that, that would be most helpful.
Yes, I can.
And just identify yourself again for the record.
Okay. Claudette Macy, the Executive Director of Fort Greene Council, Inc., who's the sponsor of Albany Neighborhood Senior Center at 196 Albany Avenue. Okay, we've been sponsoring the center for over 8 years. I know it's more than that. And what we do right now, given the fact we're very aware that across the street, which is the Albany housing, there's people 60 and over. And so we do outreach. We have a program each month printed, which we hand out. We have community meetings, and we've just recently did a mass mailing to all the residents in that area that are 60 years and older from the voting records. And that has been a great success. We currently have about 25 to 30% of the membership coming from the Albany housing.
How much percentage?
About 25 to 30.
And what was the year prior, before this effort?
This just happened. Prior to this, it was like 10 or 15.
And we just made sure that we got some demographics regarding age, population, and we estimate that in this particular census tract, there's about almost 600,000, no, that's city, I'm sorry. There's 333 people between the ages of 65 and 74.
In that building.
In that census tract. So that could be a census tract of many buildings in one or more blocks, as far as census tracts are concerned. So we just wanted to hear some of the efforts, because we were trying to understand whether or not seniors are being marketed, what would be this resource for them, considering the volume of seniors.
Well, I must say, in the past, we've had the bus ads. Like last year, we did the ads from the bus, really big, in the whole area with everybody 60. Hopefully it would catch them. We've done the mailing, we've done the churches, we've done the hospitals. This project here that we've just done captures every single one, people who are deceased, unfortunately, because it's dealing with all the voters and non-voters. And it's the biggest mailing that we've ever done to not only 196 Albany, all our programs in each district. Right. So the census you have, I'm sure that the mailing was done to each and every person that's 60 and over. And in the last, we've done it, they started mail out like 2 weeks ago. And Albany Neighborhood Center been having like 200 calls a day.
Beautiful.
From the mailing.
What I wanted to understand. I appreciate that effort, because that's the only way people are going to know what is in their backyard. We can no longer behave as if people assume what institutions are in their backyard.
That's proven. We've had a lot of testimony. Some people live around the corner, didn't even know what was happening in there.
There you go. So I'm thrilled to hear how your efforts are truly tracking outcomes. The borough president is concerned that city lease terms are not as long as they have been in the past, and I'm really happy to see that there's a 20-year lease being considered here. It's a natural effect where we've seen the shutdown of a lot of services, including childcare centers, because of these short-term leases that are just, they cannot plan long-term. So we are excited to see that this particular lease is going to be a long-term duration. With the anticipated duration of this lease, what rights would the city have to acquire the property if and when there is an opportunity to do so, so that the rate of investment is captured as a right of first refusal?
So as part of
You
our...
can say your name correctly.
my name is Jason Ortiz with DCAS. As part of our negotiation, our mandate was to insert a right of first refusal in our lease. So there is an opportunity, should the landlord pursue a sale, that the city agency can purchase the property.
And so the right of first refusal is already part of the current contract that is before us.
Correct.
Fantastic. And the law department will receive a copy of that,
Correct.
so that my examples of when I was serving as a council member for 12 years of 211 Ainsley Street is something that I do not wish for any community board, where we walk away from a property we've invested millions into. And the opportunity to seek right of first refusal on behalf of taxpayers is very crucial to these 20-year leases. Thank you. As part of Borough President Adams' Cross Brooklyn initiative, or connecting residents on safer streets, Borough President Adams believes that making street crossings safer for children and seniors is a priority for our borough, especially considering the mayor's Vision Zero concept. The center's corner location along a wide street across from Albany houses provides an opportunity to improve street safety by introducing curb extensions at the pedestrian crossings. Additionally, given the presence of curb extensions across Prospect Place, Introducing a curb extension across Albany Avenue provides an opportunity to increase the surface area to introduce mere greenery or benches that makes it more amenable to our seniors. What steps is the Department of the Aging taking to prepare to address this intersection in a multifaceted way? Working with DOT?
Yeah, so we talked about this when we did a ULURP for Albany, and we are definitely interested in pursuing it. The Albany lease was just finalized, so we're going to run with that, and this will be probably a parallel track. Senior safety is always a great idea. Any greenery we can add, anything to, I know the bioswale concept was something that you're interested in. And so we want to talk to DOT and see what we can do.
And it's not just DOT, it's DEP.
Okay.
So DOT along with DEP to have an integrated plan, master plan for what would be that corner. And our office is amenable to supporting the infrastructure with an investment. And so I ask our director, Claudette, if you can just follow through on the following fiscal year with a proposal to request funding to support this where the agencies may fall short. And so starting those conversations now, working with the community board to be able to file for the new fiscal year.
And is there an interim measure where the Department of Transportation, at their expense, would actually paint similar to the concrete you have poured on Prospect side into the Albany side, and they would put bollards out there for safety purposes, so you could create that same zone now, and they would not do that unless there's a maintenance agreement. So whether it's within the construct of the lease to determine who would maintain it, might be like sweeping, because you can't get street sweepers in there, some snow removal. So whether it be a landlord obligation, whether it be your organization or the city's obligation, something that can be figured out within the context of the lease to have a rider that has a maintenance agreement in there that clarifies who would be responsible. You could coordinate really soon with DOT to see that improvement.
Be fantastic. And it's just that interagency support that will not occur if it's not all linked together. So I just request that DCAS plays the role of adding the rider, whatever that may look like, that's most conducive to the city, and DOT being called upon by DIFTA and DEP to assist, and then CC us so that we can be of assistance as well.
Okay, and
It's even, we've seen cases where there's been planters placed, benches, so whatever may be best for the seniors.
I must say, we got some benches, not 10 years ago, but there are benches now and they're being used.
It's
They're being
important,
used,
right? We want to activate our sidewalks in a very positive way that's engaging, that welcomes individuals, and provide shade at the same time.
Yeah, we have to work on that, the shade part.
That's right. And so the DEP model of these bioswales provide you an opportunity to plant trees at the city's cost, right? With an integrated rainwater runoff water that is captured because the tree is, and the actual plantings that are provided within that bioswale capture the runoff water. Yes. So we're looking forward to seeing this very aggressive plan along what would be your 20-year renewal. And then just to make sure that we understand some of the conversations with the landlord as far as investment into the building. Have there been improvements to the building?
As part of our negotiation for the long-term 20-year deal, we have an agreed to what we call a scope of work for the landlord to provide specific investments into the building pursuant to DIFTA's needs and the operation of the building. So elevator repair and maintenance, there will be roof work, there will be major...
I'm sorry, Mr. Ortiz. The elevators work right now?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure. And the elevators work without issues, or there's constant issues and repair?
I mean, you can answer this here, honestly.
Currently, the daycare was upstairs,
Right.
ACS, that's no longer there.
Right.
So only the seniors are using the elevator now, so it's not a lot of traffic. But when the daycare was there, I think they had some issues.
I think when there was more usage, there were more maintenance issues.
Right.
But the landlord is aware of them, and he's making that capital investment. So
And when we say he's making that capital investment, what are we referring to? A brand new elevator?
no, it's going to
Okay.
be elevator upgrades.
Elevator upgrades.
Especially considering they're looking for another tenant upstairs.
Right.
We don't know who it is yet.
So it's also not just for DIFTA's use, right? It would be for a potential future tenant, and in order for him to market that upstairs space, he needs to have the building and a good working order.
Correct. And the opportunity for the city to potentially look for that site for, let's say, childcare use, or potentially moving, and I don't know how favorable this is or not, moving what would be the seniors upstairs. What those conversations had, where you can activate bottom floors for what would be aging down childcare services, right? We have a great demand in the borough of, what would be infant care to 3 years old. And now with the mayor's push for what would be universal
For
for 3-year-olds.
three
Oh,
years,
really?
four now.
Wow.
Yeah, three.
Just wanted to make sure that we're taking that into consideration, because there's no reason why the seniors couldn't be pushed up. The opportunity for already what is a rooftop, that was already a playground for the students that were there before. It just lends for the seniors to have greater accommodations. Were those considerations?
As
Discussed.
part of our negotiation with the landlord, we were exploring a number of different options for the site. With the vacant upstairs space, DCAS is considering potential other uses for the site. We have a very extensive portfolio with a variety of needs. So we are looking very seriously at putting something else, some other city use that would be complementary to the aging use.
And so, with that consideration, without you having to say what use that is, can the seniors be considered to be moved up where perhaps whatever friendly to senior services tenant you're looking into placing there would need what would be street level access?
We have considered moving DIFTA upstairs. The challenge is it's a very specific build out for DIFTA, and to recreate that in a brand new space would be much more expensive to do, rather than just some investment in their existing space. So that's the challenge for us, having the landlord make that investment a second time to build out a very specific space for DIFTA's use.
And what would potentially be accommodated in the upstairs use, if not the seniors, would be potentially another school, another child
It
care
would be,
center.
that space already lends itself to that use because of the prior use. So that is our most serious use for that site.
And what was the cost to that particular assessment as far as moving the seniors upstairs?
We actually never got that far because the landlord was very averse to spending any kind of money in that fashion.
And could you please provide our office with the scope of work so that we have it as part of our file for our records?
Absolutely.
And if in the future there is an opportunity to see what is the Borough President supporting such a scenario where the seniors are able to move up, If you can have what would be offline conversations as to cost, based on your own numbers with the Department of the Aging, so that we can analyze whether or not, before any decisions of moving another service into the building, could lend itself to an investment, which I believe will then allow for the building's use to continue to serve the community. Okay? Excellent. We did the streetscape. And then as far as the opportunities for maximizing job, workforce opportunities, and connecting with local businesses, if Claudette, can you just speak to
Sure.
how you advertise? Do you use the platform of the website on the community board? How could the public access opportunities at the center, as well as our local businesses and MWBE community, to do business with the City of New York through the Senior Center?
Okay, we've been, for Greene Council as a whole, that's our first choice to do business locally, though we have city referred businesses, bigger businesses. We do support local businesses for our food or produce. And in terms of staffing, actually at Albany, in all our centers, we have community residents. We prefer the community residents because they live in the community, number one, and we are play an important part, like heat waves, etc., and snowstorms. So if we have somebody living in Long Island, we don't try to do that because we can walk to work and we can serve the elderly throughout Brooklyn. So right now, most of our staff live in the area, live in Brooklyn, and we continue to try to achieve 100% of Brooklyn residents and vendors.
And how do you advertise that?
We advertise right now on our website, on what's the name of the big thing now? We have a program which our payroll paychecks has. We do that. We also do churches. We do word of mouth by the seniors asking their relatives if they know anyone. And that's how we are right now.
Is it possible to share the link to your website with the community board so
Sure.
they would be able to advertise it as well?
Sure.
That would be fantastic. We're trying to make sure that our community boards play a platform on all good things considered. So we have to make sure that they are in the knowing of information, and that their websites are utilized so that it captures an even wider audience.
Sure.
I appreciate that. Well, we have 3 witnesses that have joined us today. 2, because Claudette, unless there's anything else you'd like to share.
I think you've asked all the questions. If any more questions,
We've
I will
covered
answer.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. I'd like to ask Ethel Tyus from Albany Senior Center to join us in her testimony, as well as Catherine Perko from Albany Avenue Senior Center to also please join us in testimony.
Hi, I'm Ethel Tyus. I'm not from Albany Senior Center. I am the
I'm sorry.
land use chair for CBA, and we also have with us, as you mentioned earlier, the chair of the.
But you're not members of the center?
No.
We have to change that.
I know, I got a mailing, thank you.
Thank you. That's the fact.
And I'm here because I am concerned about what's happening in that area of Community District 8. Crown Heights North going east to Weeksville is hot, sizzling hot. This particular building has been owned by 196 Albany for a number of years. And so there's a little bit of confusion about exactly what's going on with the building. And since we're city agencies all here together, trying to do the best for the citizenry, I thought I would just add that I looked into the elevator, and DOB is still listing it as an open violation, and I will hand this over. And this violation was docketed by the court on May 31st of 2011. They've paid a fine of $3,380.89, but they have not repaired the elevator. Could you pass that over? I did not catch the name for the DCAS representative. May I have your name, please?
Jason
Yes?
Ortiz.
Thank you.
O-R-T-I-Z.
Thank you. So, and that is not only for ECB, but also there's a follow-up from DOB itself. So
Very much.
DOB is doing a survey now, looking for ways to improve its website, because when you read that, you're not quite sure what's going on. They paid a fine, it's still open. We've been told city planning went out there and it was fixed and it's working and this is still there. I printed that just before I left home to come here this evening. Okay, so that's one. This is your copy for you, Ms. Granville, as chair of the board. When the community board reviewed this last Thursday, I am the chair of the land use committee now, and we didn't want to cause a ruckus by bringing forward the fact that the owner, who has many names, Yeskiel Strugovich, Chaskiel Strugovich, Mikey Oberlander, is a defendant as a partner in 196 Albany Holdings LP, case number 17 CV 02161 in the Eastern District of New York. This was filed in April 10th of this year. The complainants, who are numerous, are complaining that they've been defrauded in giving this person, Strulovich, money to, for the deed for this building.
For
And
this
it's
building in question, 184 Albany,
196 Albany Avenue.
which is a separate property, not where the senior center is.
No, no.
No,
It's the same.
It's the same.
I think the lawsuit is about a Williamsburg land deal, though. I don't think it's about this particular
Well, the
building.
complaint is here, I've read through it, and they've put it, the complainants have placed a notice of pendency on the deed for the building. So I'm bringing this forward as a member of the community board so that we can all work together to make sure that services are not interrupted. DCAS can easily tailor that deed to cover every little wiggle hole out of there that the owner might try to take and protect the services so that the services can continue to be offered. But I didn't want any confusion about who's suing who and what's at stake. And neither do I want us to look like we're wearing blinders. Thank you.
Guys, can I get that
Yes.
particular document? Do you mind? Do you have another copy of your own?
Yes, I'm turning from the web. There's a notice of pendency that puts a cloud on the title, which makes insurance for the building that much more expensive. But the city is its own insurer. As a 20-year retiree from the controller's office, court rep for personal injury, I can say we cover ourselves. So. So those aspects of this deal concern me. I wanted to bring it forward. We didn't put it in the letter from the community board to the community because we didn't want to jeopardize the continuance of the services. But we are here so that everybody that's involved takes a closer look.
And just to make a statement on behalf of DCAS, as part of our lease, our standard leases, we have something called a non-disturbance agreement, which means should this building be sold, should there be any kind of legal issue or transference in any way, the agency can continue or is allowed to continue undisturbed regardless of ownership
Thank you.
through the course of their lease.
That is very comforting.
And then in addition to that, the right of first refusal.
That's correct.
So
But all
pending this legal matter, if ever resolved where the property is at risk, the city has the first right to
take
capture
ownership. Okay.
and own.
Like that.
Right. That's why I started the conversation with that particular
Excellent.
line of question, because it's happened where the city did not act on their right of first refusal, and the city ends up paying twice for a building, sometimes even 3 times more, because we're no longer in the 70s paying that price. We're paying, 21st century prices, and so that then costs the city 3 times more to then recapture what was already their investment. So I'm thrilled that you have brought this to our attention. Thank you very much to both of you. And I know you were from Community Board 8. I thought you were representing what would be the senior center as seniors, members of the center.
Well, I love working with DIFTA and Fort Greene Senior Center.
Good. I'm happy to hear that. And so this is why I value our community boards and just their leadership. So we want to make sure that this particular center is protected, and that the city's interests are protected as well. We have our last speaker, Dr. Perko. Hi.
I'm not with the Senior Center at all. I'm a community resident of CB8.
If you can come and have a seat, state your name.
My name is Catherine Perko. Hi, my name is Catherine Perko. So I'm glad to see that a lot of questions I had were answered here. But so I stated that I'm speaking in opposition to this. I want to make it clear that what I want is for a senior center to operate at this address for the next 20 years. I want it to be a senior center for the residents of this community. But because of this lawsuit, particularly because of the building owner, who currently owns, well, as you'll see in the thing, he owns, he's a speculative developer. He made his money in Williamsburg, 20 years ago, but now he's buying up properties in Crown Heights, and he's already now establishing a record of buying properties and then opening them up to city services, but for 5-year leases. So I'm glad to hear it's a 20-year lease. But at 1173 Bergen Street, where the city opened the 20th homeless shelter in Crown Heights, he's the owner of that building as well, and he purchased it around the same time. In fact, it's a part of the parcel of secret properties with 196 Albany. So I'm very concerned about Strulovich, and I would feel just a lot better about this if, as Taya said, all of these things were covered, right? That being said, my other concern, and I raised this at the initial land use meeting and then again at the general board meeting, is that, and I didn't get a clear answer on this, will the city be using this site, this first floor? I heard you talking about the second floor, but as a senior center and only as a senior center. I'm concerned that at one point the city might say, this is underutilized as a city service, and we have a greater need for something else, and so we're going to remove this as a senior center and place something else in for a different part of the community. As you mentioned, there's plenty of seniors in this area, right? And ideally, if they don't get displaced, there will be that many more seniors needing to use this facility in the next 20 years. So again, I want to make sure that the current landlord cannot make it so that this facility changes, its usage, intended usage doesn't change, or that the city itself doesn't decide to change it, because I think it's important for this neighborhood to have this senior center.
No, and we appreciate your due diligence over this matter, and we don't take it lightly. And we have been working feverishly to secure services in our neighborhood, in our neighborhoods, right? Especially in Brooklyn, where a lot of the development fever is pushing out and curtailing a lot of the services. And we want to make sure that we are securing locations that are harder to come by for these services. And so working closely with DCAS, we have seen this is a complete shift from what we've seen come before us for other matters. So a 20-year lease is refreshing. We're thrilled that they are paying attention to properties like this, where the need is that much greater to extend longevity leases with protection riders. And it's all in the execution of those riders, right? Because if the city then says, we're not going to fight for the building, that changes the dynamics, right? But you still have a default called community, right? And so community can always make sure that there's other ways in securing an opportunity to hold on to the services that are rendered there today upon what would be any disturbance. But clearly, DCAS has already executed what would be in the lease, what is the protection to not disturb the services, to continue with the services, to have what would be continuous 20-year lease with the rights of first refusal. And I cannot tell you that enough, because I know that we experienced it in Williamsburg when I was the council member there. So having said that, it's a matter of everyone in the community working towards advancing the needs and marketing what is the service, making sure that seniors do become members, because the service once lost will not come back. So that's why we were asking about the vacant floors. If there's an opportunity to expand that particular senior center, fantastic, but the demand has to be there before they expand.
Right. Even if they never expand, I would hope it gets to stay that way. I know there's a time limit, but what's stopping the landlord from demolishing the building and then building a new building on that site, as it's currently underdeveloped as a 4-story building?
The building is not underdeveloped, actually.
Oh.
Based on residential use, it's overdeveloped.
Right. Oh,
It's
okay.
built to community facility rules that allow additional floor area. So it's likely that demolishing the building and trying to build residential in its place is actually, doesn't even pencil
Detrimental,
in,
right.
even with the strength of the market.
All right, just checking.
But the question is how to backfill community facility use within the rest of the building.
Yes, good.
And can I also address a statement you made? I think your concern was, can the landlord change the use? And pursuant to our lease agreement, he cannot change the use
breach of
for,
contract.
right, for DIFTA's occupancy for the 20 years. So long as we execute this agreement, DIFTA is secure for the next 20 years.
Good. I'm glad.
Well, this was a very good hearing regarding senior services. I hope it remains that way. We look forward to working with DCAS and DIFTA on all the outstanding matters to just continue to improve the corner. And to Dr. Perko, make sure you continue to stay active, assisting these ladies, supporting them, and making sure that the community board as a whole stays united. The hearing on these matters are now closed. Thank you for participating in this public hearing. Borough President Adams will review the applications we heard today and will soon submit his recommendations to the City Planning Commission. Borough President Adams would like to take this opportunity to remind you that the City Planning Commission will hold a hearing on this item. The hearing is now adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you.